Hey everybody, welcome to the Flying Bible. Today we are checking out the road to Jericho and then back up to Jerusalem. We are taking off from the modern road to Jericho and going to follow this on down to Jericho and then take the ancient road back up from Jericho into Jerusalem. There is actually a part on the way that these two roads kind of come together, but they really get further apart as you get closer to Jericho and to the Dead Sea. They were flying in the Pedestral Virus SW121. This is a fun little airplane, and it allows for short takeoffs and short landings, which we are going to need today. It is a very light aircraft with a good amount of power for what it's carrying. Today the journey, as you see, will be following the road on down to Jericho on the modern route and then coming back up from Jericho on the ancient route and then flying around Jerusalem a little bit to see the surrounding area and checking out the temple as we talked about last week, getting a closer look. As you see, this is very rough terrain coming on down through here. It's a little up and down, but overall we are descending further and further down into the Kidron Valley. It's a steep descent. From Jerusalem is almost 3,000 feet in elevation. Then we come down to Jericho, which is around 1,000 feet below sea level. We're going to take a sharp left turn here to get on over into Jericho, and now we approach. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it in the Gospel of Luke, and there he met a man named Zacchaeus. If you go to Jericho today, you can visit the tree that Zacchaeus climbed. He was small in stature, and he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus as Jesus was passing by. So we're going to stop down here. I know there's a road that goes up at an angle toward the mountainous area, and we're going to find a spot to land. This is somewhere near the tree of Zacchaeus where Jesus saw him and said to him, "Hurry and come down, I'm going to stay at your house." He stayed there. Jesus caught a lot of flack for it, for staying at a sinner's house, and ultimately the message there was that the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost. Seeing people like Zacchaeus is exactly what he came to do. Taking a look around Jericho quickly and these houses in the area, you see that mountain in the background. There is actually a beautiful monastery up here. We're going to try to get taken off, but we don't have a lot of room to take off, so this might be a quick takeoff. Oh, let's try to get over that house. And okay, and as Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho, a large crowd, Bartimaeus, the blind man, heard that Jesus of Nazareth was passing through, and he shouted out, saying, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus said to him, "What can I do for you?" The blind man said to him, "My teacher, let me see again." And Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." And immediately he regained his sight, followed him along the way. And as you see along the way, he's up these hills, up this harsh ancient road from Jericho to Jerusalem, a long way up, a few thousand feet climbing in very harsh desert. And this is also the setting for another story that you'll probably recognize, the Good Samaritan. Now, the Good Samaritan didn't actually take place in Samaria. He was talking to a lawyer, and Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan, and the parable takes place along this road to Jericho. He was actually traveling the opposite way, more like what we just did. And as he told the story, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, fell into the hands of robbers, stripped, beat him, left him for dead. And he went on to explain that a priest came by, a Levite came by, and then a Samaritan came by. And the Samaritans didn't have a really good reputation with the Jews. They didn't all like each other very much. But it was the Samaritan who showed mercy to that man who got beaten and robbed. The lawyer recognized it, and Jesus told him to go and do likewise. Go and be a neighbor. Go and show love. Go and show mercy to a person who needs it. Go be like that Good Samaritan. Now we continue traveling up here as we see the road from Jericho is coming together. We're kind of following the modern road again as we head straight into the city of Jerusalem. We're going to come and fly up over this hill, which is the Mount of Olives. And just over this hill, you'll see the Temple Mount. As Jesus and his disciples were approaching Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany near the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples to go and get a colt that hadn't been ridden, to untie it, bring it to him, because the Lord needs it. Jesus would proceed to ride that colt or a donkey into town. Just behind the Mount of Olives is where you'll find Bethphage, so you can see why it made sense for them to stop there to find the colt to go right into Jerusalem, because after stopping at Bethphage, it was just over the hill. Bethany is just a little bit southeast of here. We're going to go see that more closely in a few minutes. As for right now, we're going to come back around and check out the Kidron Valley. You may have heard of the Kidron Valley before. This is a place where a lot of stuff is happening. It is this small valley right in between the hill that the Temple Mount is on and the Mount of Olives. One time, King David had to flee for his life from his son Absalom, who was in the middle of usurping the crown from David and plotted out this whole thing, and then came down and sent David running for his life, and he crossed this Kidron Valley, climbed up the Mount of Olives. He's weeping as he went. Other townspeople were weeping as he went. His head was covered. He was walking barefoot, a very dark time. And also right over in this region, just outside of the city, is the Spring of Gihon. King Hezekiah, in the midst of dealing with an empire looming over them, he redirected this water from the Spring of Gihon into the city of David, which is just south of the Temple Mount. So at the moment, we're going to swing back around and come over here and land on the Mount of Olives, the place where you find the Garden of Gethsemane. Just after the Last Supper, Jesus was approached by Roman guards because of Judas in the Garden of Gethsemane. And there he was praying. He told his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And of course, they were falling asleep. They had trouble keeping their eyes open. Even though we've just had all these experiences with Jesus opening the eyes of the blind, now we find the disciples who were supposed to have their eyes open seeming to go blind as they're falling asleep. So we continue on our journey. Let's get taken off here from the Mount of Olives, and we are going to head on over to Bethany. Now, Bethany is located just southeast of Bethphage. Lazarus of Bethany, brother of Mary and her sister Martha, he was gravely ill. They contacted Jesus to come see him, to come save him before he died, but by the time Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been dead in the tomb for 4 days. After an emotional back and forth between Jesus and Mary, Jesus approaches the tomb, and there at the mouth of the tomb, Jesus called out to Lazarus with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to him, "Unbind him, let him go." Now, we're going to come down here and see if we can actually land on the Temple Mount. This might be a little tough because there's not a lot of space to land. Try to get slowed down just enough to touch down on here and not crash off the side. See if we can turn a little bit. Okay, good times. Now, let's stop and take it all in. Of course, up here we've got a mosque these days. Back behind us is the Mount of Olives, and we continue to look around. We see this wide space of the Temple Mount. And you just imagine the temple having been up here at one time. And we can recall a time when Jesus was talking to the people up here. Jesus said, "Tear this temple down, and I will raise it up in 3 days." Of course, we know now that Jesus wasn't actually talking about this temple, even though the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, but Jesus was talking about the temple of his body. So while we're up here seeing the temple, I wanted to show you this beautiful rendition of the Dome of the Rock. If you go inside there, it's actually kind of like hallways just going around the centerpiece, and the centerpiece is this rock where it's understood that Muhammad was lifted up to heaven from that rock, which is why the Dome of the Rock is there. got a short takeoff, but we are able to get back up in the air, and let's swing on around and see the ancient city of Jerusalem. On our left, of course, you see the Temple Mount over there, and as we continue to go north a little bit, it's up here somewhere that Jesus would have been crucified, that he was brought to the place called Golgotha. Nowadays, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is built over that spot. And this is also where Joseph of Arimathea's tomb was, where the body was dressed to be put into the tomb. As we come on back around here on the west side of the ancient city, we're just following all around the ancient city right now, and that's where Caiaphas, the high priest, lived, and that was right over by Herod's palace. As we come over here to the southwestern corner, this is where the Last Supper room, the large room upstairs, that's furnished and ready. Preparations were made for Jesus to share his Last Supper with his disciples. Right over here in this area, and then as we continue to go back east toward the southeastern corner, we get over by the pool of Siloam, which is Jesus healed another blind man, made him able to see. Finally, we come down here and land right by the western wall of the temple. I know the simulator doesn't exactly do it justice, but we're going to come land over here and see if we can't find a nice spot that could at least represent for us the place of Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified. There's a nice little hill over here. I think we'll just pull up here and stop and take a look around. Remember, it was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified Jesus. The inscription, the charge against him, read the King of the Jews. Thank you for being here. Flying Bible. Travis, hope to see you next time. God bless you. I wonder what this blue marker is over here. Oh! I guess that's water.